Well, first of all, thank you for inviting and very kind words. Following. Uh, we are really figuring it out as we organize. The world around us is changing so quickly, and what we can do and contribute continues to evolve. And I just want to start by saying that because we certainly don't figure it out. I don't know anyone who does, and that's part of like the talk um, uh, partnerships. It's really all about whether it's partnering internally, partnerships, policy, our employees. We feel that virtually nothing can be our own. And so that's really what I want to sort of talk about a little bit today. There we go. Slides are better than what I can see, but we, as I started to allude to, are really a startup. Started in 15. We were brought in. We had very philanthropic partners who founded the firm, but we didn't have really a formalized philanthropy organization within Blackrock. And so part of what we did was figure out, how do we formalize it? How do we create something that really is of the scale and the magnitude of Blackrock, which is not easy to do, and really drive so many of the resources that we have across the firm to important, thank you, that's better, important goals. And it's interesting, if you think about Blackrock, I don't know how many of you know exactly what Blackrock did. I didn't before I joined, and it's the largest asset manager in the world. And really, what does that mean? It means managing people's money for the future. And it's all about retirement. So we said, if we were to widen the aperture and think about all the people who aren't necessarily clients of Blackrock, but are very focused on the day to day versus the future, what would that look like? And that's really how we came up with our mission. We partner with everyone and anyone, nonprofits, startups, clients, businesses, our employees, governments, anybody who we think can help drive in the same direction to just creating a better financial. So when we think about what our mission is, broadly characterized, it's around creating sustainable economies. And that's true across Blackrock, not just what we do. And the way that we think about it, I'm going to go back a slide here. I think there's a little bit of a delay. There are really two primary areas that we focus on. One is around economic mobility, and that's largely finding ways for people to upskill, have better jobs, better opportunities, so that they can create their own financial stability. And we partner that with what we call financial resiliency. And I'll talk about this in a few minutes, but we focus very much on savings and access, and Stephen was saying earlier, making sure that people have the opportunity to create sort of that financial safety net, because that's not equally available to all people. And the third part of what we do is really about empowering our employees, and that's such a critical and an important component of our work, and I'm going to get to that in a minute. But all of this is really in response to what I think our leadership hopes we can accomplish, but also our expanding group of stakeholders. And I think Blackrock, as it becomes more and more sort of on sort of the center stage of what's happening in the world, our stakeholders who are doing continues to expand. And we think a lot about that as we craft the work that we should be doing and the impact that we should be having around the world. So what do? We invest in ideas and solutions to address pressing social problems. And if we look, what does that really look like? So as I said at the beginning, there are really two areas that we focus on. One is around upskilling and scaling solutions so that more and more people can get jobs that are sustainable for them and for their families. And this other is around creating for people. So, for example, on the upskilling, we work with a lot of Perscolas, Laboratoria in Latin America, Refuate in the UK to help people get the credentials and the skills. And then we focus not just on the skills, but on the actual placement, so that when we look at investments, very much like our colleagues who are looking at companies, we look at what are the outcomes, what are the metrics, how do we know that these are successful, and how can we help these companies make sure that what they're doing has lasting impact. So if it's about an upskilling company, we have to see what are the job placement rates, what are the retention rates, who are we placing, are we reaching people who wouldn't necessarily have access to these opportunities. The same situation with a company like Refuate, where we're looking to say, how can we find people who are in jobs that they have much greater potential or care or credentials for, and how do we help them often just overcome a barrier that may, with the support of someone else, not be an impenetrable barrier. I'm throwing in COVID relief because we made a $50 million commitment to COVID relief fund a few months ago. And while the first part of that was dedicated and direct service providers around the globe, Feeding America, food banks in almost every city where we operate, healthcare workers. The second phase is really with what we did at the beginning, that we know this pandemic is disproportionately affecting the people who we most hope to serve and to support, and around upskilling and financial stability is only more critical. So the second half of our COVID relief will really align with our core work, because as we know, more and more people are being displaced. The job employment numbers are just going to continue, presumably, to get worse before they get better. So just moving forward, I want to talk about an initiative going back to partnerships that we launched about a year and a half ago around emergency. This was a really good example where we were thinking, what could we do next with investing, retirement? Could it be micro investing? And very quickly we recognized that a statistic that's so well known today in the US and the UK, so many people in America don't have $400 for an emergency. And of course, that's been amplified today. So how could we create an ecosystem that would help create that? And while we knew there were nonprofit experts who had great ideas, they didn't necessarily have the distribution. So we brought in employers, record keepers, gig platforms like Etsy, ADP, to say, how can we reach the people who use solution? And we looked at the fintech community, where we said there's talent, there's great tech stack. They don't necessarily focus on an LMI community. They don't necessarily have the distribution. And how can we bring all of these players together to start offering an emergency savings option that is simple and accessible and compelling to use? And that's really what we've built here. And I just pause on that, and we have policy underneath, because we know that some of the reasons that people aren't saving as much is it's just structurally not as easy as it is for people who have, say, more capital to save. So I think this is just a good example of we know at BlackRock there's virtually nothing that we can space, and the more opportunity we have to partner with others, the much higher probability we will have a success with more and more sort of smart people thinking about these problems. One thing I just want to say that's really interesting about the emergency savings is, if you look at the statistics, what's happening today, and you think about the emergency that we're in the middle of, this crisis, that people are actually saving in a crisis. We're seeing savings rates going up, opening savings accounts with the intention of putting away short-term and emergency funds in a way that maybe was on the radar before, but it's been brought into such sharp focus now. So almost now more than ever, this is a critical initiative, we believe. The last thing that I really just want to focus on is that what I said at the beginning, that it's really about empowering our employees. It is the most fundamental partnership in terms of maximizing the impact of their skills and their interests in every community in which we operate. And it really starts, I think we can have sort of this higher level initiatives that the corporate funding gets directed to. But at the end of the day, it's our employees who are in the communities every day, focused on things that they mostly care about. And one of our single most important roles is to amplify and support their efforts. So I think I can stop right there and hope this is a helpful window into what we are working on creating at Blackrock. Thank you.